Welcome to The Explainer. I'm so glad you're here because today we're doing something a little bit different and honestly a lot of fun. We are bypassing the usual setup and jumping straight into the ring for a dialectical duel between two wildly different eras of cycling. We're talking about the Giro d'Italia. It's one of the absolute most grueling, legendary bike races on the planet. But instead of just rattling off historical dates or lists of winners, we've pulled together some incredible source material to stage a face-off. It's the gritty original era versus the hyper-optimized reality of the sport today. It's a literal battle of raw grit versus pure optimization, and it tells us a massive amount about how human endurance has evolved over the years. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture our two fighters. In one corner, representing the past, we have the gritty 1909 laborer. This guy is staring down 2,448 kilometers of dirt, rock, and basically unpaved misery that made up the very first Giro. And in the other corner, staring right back at him, our 2026 professional. He's hyper-optimized, wrapped in highly engineered aerodynamic pink gear, and calculating literally every single pedal stroke with a computer. It kind of begs the question, right? How do these two athletes, separated by well over a century, even begin to comprehend what the other goes through? How do they view their own versions of the exact same race? Let's hear what they might actually say to one another. You're just a lab rat in pink spandex. Man, ouch. You can almost hear the gravel in his voice, can't you? That's the historical disdain for modern luxury speaking loud and clear. Our 1909 rider looks at today's peloton and doesn't see bicycle racers. He sees science experiments. To him, real racing means surviving 400-kilometer gravel stages. It means fixing your own punctures on the side of a dusty road with zero help. It means pushing a heavy steel frame with just one single gear, using a back that's already been hardened by years of manual labor as a bricklayer. To the original guys, the modern amenities, the perfectly calibrated diets, the carbon fiber frames, the team radios, it all completely strips away the raw, brutal essence of what the Giro was built to be. But as you'd expect, the 2026 pro doesn't exactly take that insult lying down. He fires right back. Your race was just a slow-motion survival trip. It's sharp, it's intense, and it cuts right to the core of how modern professional cyclists view historical racing. Sure, the 1909 guys were incredibly tough, nobody is denying that, but the modern rider sees their race as just that, mere survival, not precision athletics. Today's cyclist isn't just trying to make it to the finish line before it gets dark, they're operating at the absolute razor's edge of physical capability, where every single second is dissected, analyzed, and fought for at blistering speeds. To the modern pro, simply surviving is no longer the baseline for victory. Perfection is. Now 127. That number captures the sheer humanity behind that inaugural 1909 race. That's exactly how many riders stood at the starting line. And here's the absolutely crucial detail you got to keep in mind. These were not professional athletes in the way we understand that term today. They were overwhelmingly working-class men. They were bricklayers, day laborers, men whose daily lives were already defined by grueling physical labor. They didn't have multi-million-dollar contracts or endorsement deals. They were ordinary, incredibly tough men who decided to take a staggering physical gamble across the Italian countryside. And that brings us to the profound lifestyle divide between the two eras. The 1909 riders famously noted that after the dust settled and the race was over, they had real jobs to get back to. Racing a bicycle for thousands of kilometers was practically a side hustle. It was this crazy adventure sandwiched right between actual shifts of masonry or farm work. Contrast that with the 2026 reality. As the modern pro points out, today's riders train harder, longer, and vastly more efficiently. But that level of elite performance is completely all-consuming. It's not a hobby. The quest to be victorious literally takes over your entire life. Your diet, your sleep, your altitude exposure, your heart rate variability. It is a 24/7, 365-day obsession. So while the 1909 rider might scoff at the luxury of training all day, the modern rider sacrifices absolute freedom for total athletic dedication. And this brilliantly illustrates how the mechanics of the race itself have dramatically shifted. Just look at the numbers. In 1909, we're talking about monstrous 400-kilometer stages. Averaging 27 kilometers an hour might sound a little slow to a modern cyclist, but remember, they were doing this for 8 to 9 continuous hours on literal dirt and rock. It was a grind of pure attrition. Now, contrast that with 2026. The race is kicking off this Friday, May 8th, with Stage 1 taking place in Bulgaria for the first time ever. It's a 147-kilometer sprint where the peloton is going to average a staggering 50 kilometers an hour. The modern rider's mantra is simple, and it's brutal. Today, if you're not perfect, you're out. The margin for error is exactly zero. Back in 1909, you could stop, fix a flat, eat a sandwich, and still be in the race. In 2026, a stiff crosswind and a moment's hesitation will lose you the stage in a heartbeat. This lifestyle divide extends directly into a massive technological clash, too. The 2026 Pro completely dismisses the 1909 bicycle as a literal museum piece. And frankly, by modern standards, it is. The 1909 rider was armed with a single gear and a simple patch kit, dragging himself through the mountains without so much as a support car following him. Meanwhile, the modern rider boasts about their constant stream of performance data and wide tubeless tires that supposedly eat punctures for breakfast. The technological safety net of 2026 is unparalleled. If a modern rider gets a flat, a mechanic leans out of a fast-moving support car and swaps the wheel in 3 seconds flat. The 1909 rider, he was his own mechanic, his own doctor, and his own engine, all rolled into one exhausted package on the side of a dirt road. But our 1909 rider gets the final word here, and it's a brilliant flex. When told his bike is a museum piece, he calmly replies that he possessed the only equipment that actually mattered back then: leather lungs and a heart that doesn't need a battery. It completely strips away the tech, the data, the aerodynamics, and reminds the modern pro that beneath all of it, the engine is still just human flesh and blood. And surprisingly, the modern sources reveal a deep underlying respect for this, because despite that massive gap in technology and speed, the modern pro acknowledges that, yeah, they are optimized professionals today, but the grit stays exactly the same. That fundamental requirement to just suffer, to push the human body beyond its rational limits, that has survived completely intact for over a century. So, what does this all mean? We arrive at the ultimate question, and I really want you to chew on this as we wrap up this explainer. What does toughness actually mean? Is it the raw, unassisted endurance to drag a single speed bicycle through hundreds of kilometers of dirt and rock without any support? Or is it the relentless, high-stakes psychological and physical perfection required to navigate a tightly packed peloton at 50 kilometers an hour, where a single tiny mistake ends your entire career? Which era bred the toughest champion, the bricklayer or the lab rat? Both command massive respect, for sure, but they highlight just how radically our definition of human limits has shifted over the last century. Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible ride through history, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.